My name is Amelia Navarro, 29 years old. I stood near the bar at the country club, half hidden in the dimmer light, watching my sister Lauren hold court in the center of the ballroom like she'd been born for that exact spotlight. Dad's retirement party was in full swing. 200 guests, open bar, a jazz band playing something smooth and expensive in the corner. Waiters glided between tables with silver trays of champagne flutes, the crystal chandelier above us scattering light over sequins, cufflinks, and carefully curated reputations. Lauren's voice floated easily above the music, carrying across the room with that practiced laugh she always used right before dropping something she thought sounded particularly brilliant. So I told the partners, she said to a circle of admirers, that the Riverside merger would only work if we restructured the debt obligations. And I was right, of course. Closed last week for $8.3 billion. My bonus alone was enough to buy that beach house in the Hamptons. Appreciative murmurs rippled through her audience, the kind of low, impressed sounds people make when they want to be invited into that world. I took a sip of my water, feeling the condensation slip down the glass and onto my fingers, and stayed where the lighting was softer and people were less likely to notice me unless they were looking for refills. "Lauren's always been brilliant with numbers," Mom said loudly from across the room, pitching her voice for maximum reach. "Harvard MBA, youngest partner in her firm's history. We're so proud." Dad nodded, beaming. "Both my girls are successful. Lauren with her investment banking career and Amelia with her internet thing." "Internet business," Lauren corrected, smiling sweetly, but with a blade hidden in the tone. "Amelia's playing entrepreneur online. It's very cute, very millennial." Several people laughed. I kept drinking my water. I'd learned a long time ago that if I didn't rise to every bait, people eventually assumed I just didn't know any better. That assumption was useful. "What exactly does Amelia do?" Karen Mitchell asked, one of Mom's tennis friends, tan lines perfectly aligned with her diamond bracelet. "Oh, you know," Lauren said, waving her hand as if brushing away lint. "One of those tech startups. She builds websites or apps or something. Works from home in her pajamas, probably. Very casual, very low pressure. Not like real corporate work, but it keeps her busy." "I think it's nice," another woman chimed in. "Not everyone needs to work in high finance. Some people prefer simpler lives." "Exactly," Mom agreed, though her tone made it sound like a consolation prize instead of a compliment. "Amelia's always been more creative, less interested in traditional success metrics. She's happy with her little business, and that's what matters." I set down my glass and drifted a little closer, just enough to hear them clearly, still remaining a shadow at the edge of their circle. Lauren noticed me almost immediately. She always did when there was an audience. Her smile brightened, as if on cue. "Amelia, we were just talking about you," she called. "Come tell everyone about your internet business. What is it you do again? Build websites for small companies?" "Something like that," I said quietly. "See, she's so modest," Lauren said to the group, rolling her eyes in a way that invited them to laugh with her. "Won't even explain what she does. I think she's embarrassed to talk about it in front of all these corporate executives. Amelia, there's no shame in running a small online business. It's honest work." "Very honest," I agreed, taking another sip. "How many employees do you have now?" Lauren pressed, her voice syrupy with false curiosity. "Last time we talked, I think you said you were doing everything yourself, just you and your laptop working from your apartment." "The team has grown," I said. "Oh, good. How many now? 3, 4? Lauren turned back to her audience. "Small businesses like Amelia's usually stay pretty lean. Low overhead, minimal staff. That's how they stay profitable." "Something like that," I said again. "And revenue?" Lauren asked, enjoying herself now, eyes gleaming. "I mean, you don't have to share exact numbers, but are you pulling in 6 figures yet? That would be quite an accomplishment for a home-based internet business." "We're doing fine," I said. "That's wonderful," Mom interjected quickly, clearly eager to shut down a conversation that might become embarrassing. "Amelia's always been self-sufficient. She doesn't need fancy offices or big teams. She's happy with her lifestyle." "It's admirable, really," Karen said. "In this economy, just keeping a small business afloat is impressive." Lauren raised her champagne glass. "To Amelia and her internet business. May it continue to provide her with a comfortable living." Several people lifted their glasses in a toast that felt more like pity than celebration. I nodded slightly, accepting the gesture for what it was, and drifted back toward the bar. The bartender, a woman about my age with her dark hair pulled into a practical bun, leaned forward as she refilled a tray of drinks. "That was brutal," she murmured. "Your sister, unfortunately, She seems like a real piece of work. She's successful, I said. Investment banking, Harvard, youngest partner, $8 billion deals. She's earned the right to be confident. There's a difference between confident and cruel, the bartender said, arching an eyebrow. Want another water? Please. She poured it and slid the glass toward me. For what it's worth, I think internet businesses are cool. My brother works in tech, says it's the future of everything. Your brother's smart, I said. He thinks he is, she laughed. Always going on about disruption and innovation and changing the world. Drives my parents crazy because he won't get a real job. She made air quotes. I smiled, just a little. Sounds familiar. Near the entrance to the ballroom, someone had turned on one of the large flat-screen TVs mounted high on the wall. It was probably meant for a slideshow of Dad's career highlights, but instead, Bloomberg Television was playing. The volume was low enough not to compete with the band, but the closed captions crawled steadily along the bottom of the screen. I checked my watch, 7:47 p.m. Right on schedule. Lauren was now talking about a recent vacation. The yacht was 200 feet, fully staffed. We spent a week cruising the Mediterranean, she said. That's the benefit of working at my level. You can actually afford to live well. Must be nice, someone said. It is, Lauren agreed, without a hint of false modesty. I work hard. I get paid well. I enjoy the fruits of my labor. That's how capitalism is supposed to work. Some of Dad's old banking colleagues nodded along. Some of us are still climbing that ladder, one of them joked. Haven't cracked the 8-figure bonus range yet. You will, Lauren said. If you're smart, strategic, and willing to put in the hours, success is available to those who really want it. The implication hung unspoken, that anyone who hadn't reached her level simply hadn't wanted it enough. On the television, the Bloomberg anchor shuffled some papers and looked directly into the camera. The closed captions updated. Coming up after the break, breaking news in the tech world. We'll reveal the identity of Silicon Valley's newest billionaire and what it means for the industry. A few people near the TV glanced up, curiosity piqued. The bartender's gaze flicked to the screen, then back to me. You okay? She asked softly. You look tense. Just tired, I said, wrapping my fingers around my glass. These parties are exhausting. She gave me a knowing look, but didn't push. Around us, the jazz band played on. Lauren's laughter rang across the room, bright and sharp. My parents basked in her glow. And on the wall behind them, just waiting for the commercial break to end, the caption kept looping the teaser about the tech world's newest mystery billionaire. Perfect timing. When Bloomberg returned from commercial break, the shift in the room was almost imperceptible at first, a few heads turning toward the screen, a murmur from a cluster of Dad's former colleagues, the jazz band's saxophonist briefly glancing up mid-solo. But then the anchor leaned forward, her tone tightened, and the ballroom seemed to inhale as one. Welcome back, she said, crisp and steady. Tonight, we have breaking news that is sending shockwaves through the global technology and financial sectors. The volume was still low, but the captions scrolled bright and urgent across the screen. People drifted closer, drawn by the rhythm of her voice, the promise of something big. Even Lauren paused mid-story about her Monaco yacht trip, her eyes flicking to the television with casual curiosity that would soon curdle into something far more raw. For months, the anchor continued, rumors have circulated about a stealth tech company quietly revolutionizing cloud infrastructure and AI integration. Known in industry circles as Helix Systems, the company has remained largely invisible to the public despite servicing 97 Fortune 100 companies. A ripple moved through the room. 97. Even the jazz band faltered, a guitarist missing a chord. I set my water down. The bartender leaned in. That's huge, she whispered. Heads turned. Conversations stalled. A few guests walked closer to the TV, drawn like moths to the flame. Tonight, the anchor said with precise dramatic weight, we can exclusively reveal the identity of Helix Systems' founder and CEO. Lauren straightened slightly. Investment bankers love revelations, especially those they think they're close enough to have predicted. But nobody predicted this one. According to SEC documents filed today following the company's surprise IPO announcement, the founder's equity stake is currently valued at approximately... She paused. Someone nearby whispered, breathless, Come on. $1.2 trillion. The ballroom froze. No music, no chatter, no clinking glasses. Only the dull hum of the air vents and the ringing silence of 200 people realizing they had never even stood in the presence of a billionaire, let alone a trillionaire. That's trillion with a T, the anchor emphasized, making this individual the world's youngest trillionaire and one of the richest people to ever exist. Lauren's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the marble floor, bubbly liquid spreading like a gold stain between her heels. No one noticed, no one cared. Every single gaze snapped to the screen. The anchor continued smoothly, unaware that she had just fractured an entire ballroom's equilibrium. Helix Systems IPO values the company at $3.8 trillion, now the most valuable company in history, surpassing Apple, Microsoft, and Saudi Aramco combined. The founder retained a 32% stake and full voting control. The screen changed to photos, servers, data centers, offices, teams of engineers, a sleek corporate campus I'd helped design, visible only in background shots during remote meetings, all of it unfamiliar to the people watching, but intimately familiar to me. Industry analysts describe Helix Systems as the invisible backbone of modern business, the anchor said. Its proprietary AI integration platform processes more than 15 trillion data points daily for major corporations, financial institutions, government agencies, and global communications networks. Tom Bradley, the one bragging earlier about seven-figure deals, muttered, 15 trillion? What the hell? The bartender whispered, stunned. This is insane. But the room had only heard the prelude. Tonight, the anchor said, we can finally reveal the identity of the founder. A photo appeared. My photo. A professional headshot I'd taken last year because the board asked for it, just in case. Hair pulled back, clear skin, dark blazer, a faint smile. The first time I'd ever allowed a camera to show anything beyond my silhouette on a Zoom call. The name beside it read, Emilia Rodriguez Navarro, founder and CEO, Helix Systems. A tremor seemed to travel across the ballroom. Slowly, excruciatingly slowly, every head turned toward me. I lifted my glass and took a sip of water, holding their stares calmly. On television, the anchor continued. Emilia Rodriguez Navarro founded Helix Systems at age 22 while working from her apartment with a single laptop and a revolutionary algorithm. For 7 years, she maintained total privacy, no press, no interviews, no public appearances, while building the world's most essential technology platform. My pulse remained steady. Lauren's face had gone ghost white. Mom's hand covered her mouth, her eyes wet and unfocused. Dad looked like someone had unplugged him. The anchor kept talking. Helix Systems employs over 40,000 people across 32 countries. Despite its scale, the company stayed entirely self-funded. No venture capital, no acquisitions, no outside investors. A model considered nearly impossible in modern tech. A financial analyst appeared next. This is unprecedented, he said. It's like someone built Google, Amazon Web Services, and NVIDIA combined, and did it in stealth. This may be the most significant business story of the decade. The screen flashed again. Charts, metrics, revenue graphs that looked like shooting stars. Around me, whispers began. Is that her? Emilia? Our Emilia? Oh my God. She's been here the whole time? No way. She said she built websites. Someone finally managed. Emilia, is that you? I set down my water glass. Yes, I said simply. It's me. Tom Bradley took an involuntary step closer. But you're a trillionaire? According to the SEC filing, I said quietly, though the exact number fluctuates daily. And you built all of this? Another guest stammered, gesturing helplessly toward the TV. I did. Lauren looked at me like she was staring into the sun. Something bright enough to hurt. Something real enough to be undeniable. Something she never imagined stood in her shadow all along. You said you had a small internet business, she choked out. I never said small, I replied. I said I ran an internet business. You filled in the rest. The anchor on the television added, almost poetically, Tonight marks a turning point in the global technology landscape. Emilia Navarro has fundamentally altered the world economy, and until now, no one even knew her name. Lauren swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. This isn't possible. But it was. It always had been. And the most stunning part was that none of this had changed anything about who I was. The only thing that changed was who finally noticed. The ballroom, once buzzing with jazz and clinking glasses, had shifted into something else entirely, a pressure chamber of stunned silence, disbelief, and rapidly rearranged power dynamics. People who wouldn't even make eye contact with me an hour earlier were now openly staring, whispering, recalibrating. It was like watching a room full of finely dressed bankers collectively reboot. But the shock hadn't fully detonated yet. That detonation began with a single voice. Why didn't you tell us? Dad asked, his voice cracking around the edges. Not angry, not defensive, just small. A sound I had never heard from him. Before I could answer, Gerald Wong, one of Dad's longtime colleagues, approached with the hesitant reverence of someone stepping toward a religious artifact. Excuse me, Amelia, he said carefully, but does my company use Helix systems? If you work at Stellar Industries, I said, yes. You've been a client for 4 years. He blinked, slowly, twice. Then my entire corporation is running on your platform? Yes. He made a low whistle. What do we pay you? Around $400 million annually, I answered calmly. Bundled services, security, AI integration, cloud orchestration, analytics, global communications. $400 million. Someone behind him nearly dropped their champagne, and then the ripple spread. Stellar uses her? So does Hartwell Financial, I think. Wait, we onboarded with Helix in 2019. We're all paying her. Oh my God, my entire company runs through her infrastructure. Lauren took a shuddering breath, wiping her palms on the sides of her dress. This is insane, she whispered. Amelia, you let us think you were barely getting by. You let us think your business was cute. I let you make assumptions, I said. That isn't the same thing as lying. You implied you were building websites, she snapped, voice rising. No, I said, steady and unbothered. You implied that. I just didn't correct you. Mom stepped closer, her eyes glassy. But honey, if this is all true, why didn't you tell us? We're your family. The irony was breathtaking. For 7 years, I said softly, I tried to talk about my work. Whenever I mentioned cloud infrastructure, you glazed over. Whenever I shared a milestone, you changed the topic to Lauren's promotions. Whenever I said a major contract came through, you said, "That's nice, dear," and asked Lauren about bonus season. Mom's lips trembled. Dad looked down. Lauren tightened her grip on the back of a chair. But this, Mom gestured helplessly at the television, this is different. Amelia, this is monumental. It always was, I said. You just didn't notice. Silence swept through them like a cold wind. On the screen, Bloomberg had brought in an economist. Helix Systems isn't just a tech company, he said. It's critical infrastructure for the global economy. Think of it as the nervous system of modern commerce. If it shut down, every industry would feel it instantly. Lauren let out a shaky laugh, tight, brittle, desperate. I manage $8 billion mergers, she said, voice trembling. I work 80-hour weeks. I break myself for my firm. And all this time, your company makes more in a week than mine does in a year. 2 hours, I corrected gently. Helix hit those numbers last quarter. She stared at me like I had personally rearranged the laws of physics. Then her voice dropped. So, I'm not the successful sister. You are successful, I said, just not in the way you defined it, or the way you ranked yourself, or the way you used to rank me. Her face crumpled, not into tears, but into something far more raw. Humility. And something like grief. A life measured by comparison, suddenly realizing the scale was broken. Mom reached for Lauren's shoulder, but Lauren shook her off, eyes locked on me. How are you not furious? She whispered. If I were you, I'd be shoving this in our faces. I'd be screaming. I'd be saying, I told you so. What would that accomplish? I asked. Would it make the technology better? Improve security? Help the people who rely on our platform? No. Anger is expensive. Revenge is time-consuming. I'd rather spend both on building something meaningful. You're not human, Lauren breathed. No one is this calm. I'm calm because I already knew the truth, I said. Your disbelief didn't make me small. Your assumptions didn't make me wrong. Your dismissal didn't make me invisible. It just showed what you valued and what you didn't. Lauren looked like she'd been gently struck. Dad swallowed hard, stepping forward. Amelia, I'm proud of you. His voice broke. I should have said that years ago. The words landed somewhere inside me, somewhere fragile, someplace still tender. But they didn't fill the space they were meant to. They didn't rewrite history. They didn't erase years of dismissal. They were simply late. On the television, another expert appeared. This IPO will reshape the global market, she said. But what stands out most is the founder's anonymity. A trillionaire who lived modestly and kept her focus entirely on innovation. It's unheard of. The bartender slid a fresh water glass toward me. You're handling this way better than I would, she whispered. I've had 7 years to practice, I murmured back. Guests began excusing themselves, some politely, some urgently, all of them needing to process this seismic shift. Phones were already out. Google checks, frantic texts, market analysis, legacies rewriting themselves in real time. Soon the only people left were my family. Mom, Dad, Lauren, and me. The four of us standing in the dimming ballroom, surrounded by fallen confetti, empty glasses, and the faint echoes of a party that had transformed into a fault line. Emilia, Mom said quietly, can we fix this? We can move forward, I said, but we're not starting over. You can't unknow who you were tonight, and I can't unknow it either. Lauren wiped a tear she probably didn't realize had escaped. What happens next? She asked. I took a slow breath. Tomorrow, I said, I wake up, I work, I build, same as always. She stared at me for a long time. And for the first time in my life, Lauren didn't seem to know where she stood. The ballroom emptied slowly, like water draining from a cracked glass. Conversations that had buzzed and sparkled hours earlier were now quiet murmurs of disbelief, retreating into hallways and parking lots. People slipped out in small, stunned groups, some whispering urgently, some already typing frantically into their phones, others glancing back at me like I was a rare animal newly discovered in the wild. And then it was just us. My parents, my sister, and me. The four members of a family that had just been shattered and rearranged in under an hour. Dad was the first to speak, his voice rough like he'd swallowed gravel. Emilia, we don't want tonight to end like this. It doesn't have to end any particular way, I replied gently. It just happens to end with truth. That's all. Mom stepped forward a bit, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. She had aged 10 years in the last 30 minutes, lines deeper, posture softer, pride shaken loose from its familiar place behind her voice. We were wrong, Mom said, the words fragile, like she wasn't sure how to shape them with her mouth. We underestimated you, repeatedly. We dismissed you, repeatedly. Her hands twisted against each other. But we're still your parents, and we want to understand. We want to make this right. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who had missed every chance to see me clearly for 7 years was trying now. But the timing felt like an apology delivered after the credits finished rolling. There's nothing to make right, I said softly. This isn't revenge. I didn't hide a secret life as payback. I simply built something you didn't think was worth asking about. Lauren let out a small, sharp breath. She'd wiped most of her makeup off in the bathroom, but the remnants smeared beneath her eyes made her look younger somehow, like a teenager who'd just been told her place in the world was not what she always believed. You can't expect us to take this all in immediately, she said. You dropped $1 trillion bomb on us tonight. No, I said. Bloomberg did. I just stood here. Lauren shook her head, pacing a small circle before sinking into a chair. She rubbed her forearm, a gesture I recognized from childhood, a habit she fell into whenever she was unraveling. I thought I knew what success looked like, she whispered. I built my entire life around being first, being the best, being the pride of the family. She laughed once, short and hollow. And it turns out I was the only person in the room who didn't know I wasn't even close. Success doesn't vanish just because someone else has more of it, I said. Your achievements still matter. They always did. Do they? She asked, her voice cracking. My $8 billion deal looks microscopic compared to $1 trillion company, compared to you. Comparison was never the problem, I said quietly. It's what you used it for. Lauren's eyes lifted to meet mine. Vulnerable, raw, honest in a way I rarely saw. I compared myself to you to feel superior, she admitted. Because deep down, I always feared I wasn't enough unless someone else was less. She swallowed hard. That someone was you, and you let me believe I was winning. I wasn't competing, I said. You were competing with your reflection of me. She closed her eyes. And it was a reflection you didn't bother to correct. Because you never asked, I said. Because you never wanted the answer. Silence sat between us. And in that silence, something transformed. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but a shift. A necessary break in the foundation so something new could grow later, if it chose to. Dad stepped forward next, his voice steadier than before, but still trembling with the weight of everything that had unraveled. Emilia, he said quietly, I didn't just underestimate you. I dismissed you. I made you feel small. And I did it because I believed the version of success I understood was the only one that counted. And I was wrong. He exhaled shakily. I am proud of you. I should have said it years ago. I'm saying it now. I nodded slowly. The words didn't undo the years, but they landed in a place inside me that still wanted to believe him. I appreciate that, I said. Mom reached toward me as if testing whether I would flinch. Can we try again? As a family? Learn from this? We can move forward, I said. But we can't erase the past, and we shouldn't. Lauren wiped her face again, smearing mascara across her palm. So what happens now? She asked. For you, for us, for everything? Tomorrow, I said simply. I wake up, log in, review code for the upcoming platform upgrade, meet with my engineers, and plan the Singapore data center expansion. Lauren stared. You're just going to work? It's what I do, I said. It's what I've always done. You're a trillionaire, she whispered. And that changes what exactly? The question hung there. Not rhetorical, not cold. Just honest. Dad reached out, squeezing my shoulder. Thank you, he said softly, for still being you. I gave him a faint smile. Who else would I be? As I picked up my bag, the bartender gave me a small nod. She mouthed, You handled that like a queen. It almost made me laugh. I walked toward the exit, pausing by the door. Dad, I said gently, congratulations on your retirement. I hope tonight still belongs to you, even if it didn't go as planned. He smiled, tired, shaken, but more real than I'd ever seen. It does, he said, because you're part of it. I stepped outside into the cool night air, breathing in the scent of fresh-cut grass and the faint trace of expensive cigars from the terrace. The stars shimmered overhead, steady and unconcerned with human chaos. My phone buzzed nonstop. Journalists, potential investors, people from my past suddenly remembering my number. I powered it off and slipped it into my bag. My 7-year-old Honda sat waiting in the parking lot. I unlocked it, slid inside, and let the quiet wrap around me. Tomorrow would be loud, chaotic, public. But tonight, I was just Amelia, the same person I'd been every night for the past 7 years, building something extraordinary in the shadows, while the people who loved me most never bothered to look directly at me. And nothing, absolutely nothing, about my worth had changed, except who finally noticed it.